Come on. What's up, guys? So, like I made that, what I said on that post, I have had a few number of people in the last few weeks asking me about my take on dreams. And dreams, interdimensional space, time travel, space travel, aliens, and the works. I'm just going to adjust this. I brought this into my bedroom today because, well, this is where I do all of my traveling, actually, in the bedroom. But, what up, John Wang? And, yeah, this is an interesting conversation, too, because I have not tapped into this thing in quite a number of years, as far as like a topic of conversation for myself, something that I am thinking about and I'm aware of and whatnot. So I am not, love you too, homie. I am not going to talk about like alien beings and the types, whether it's zetas or reptilians. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. It's irrelevant to my reality and this life. So, how do I start this? Okay. I'll start with this really quick. So imagine in our reality, this reality that we're in right now, right? Imagine a square. That is the space and time in which we reside in right now, right? And imagine on top of that square, another square. Beneath that square, another one, right? To the left of that square, another one. To the right of that square, another one. So now you have a plus sign, right? So now you see that plus sign of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares, right? But there's these empty spaces. Add more squares to those, right? And next to those squares, keep adding another square right next to it, right? Cool. Keep that in your mind for a moment. Where we are, the square that we are in right now, is our active current reality. All realities are active. And they're always current because time is linear, but it's also it's a mental construct, right? It's linear. So man is the measurement of all things. So I measure distance based on where I stand, right? So from where I stand right now to, the gas station. We've done all these, really intricate things to create measurement, right? So we could do feet. So my feet are 12 inches long, right? So I put 1 foot forward, that's 12 inches, another foot forward, another 12 inches, right? We call that feet. Every few feet, a yard, every few yards, so we get to miles and whatnot. Time, as far as distance goes, has also changed throughout the course of human history. A lot of it we know about, well, some of it we know about, we're allowed to have the information. And the other stuff is gone for the most part. If you think about the idea of heliocentricity, right? So helios meaning the sun. So the sun is out for a certain amount of time throughout what we call the day, and then it sets, and then nighttime is also a certain amount of time as well, right? So we split that into 12 hours. And there you have a 24-hour period, and this is how you get into seconds and minutes and hours and days and weeks and months and years and decades and epochs and aeons and so on, right? But it's still, if you're building the picture in your mind, which I hope you are, it's a perspective, it's an idea, regardless of how you want to put your belief system into, whatever kind of box, whatever. It is a belief system, right? And if enough of us believe in a structure, then that becomes the consensus. That's what everyone believes in, right? And that's it. And then that's the shit that we are told in school. And that's the stuff like parrots. It's not an intelligence game, education. It's a repetitive game. Can you repeat the same shit? And then you get A+, right? Anyway, so so I'm going to be speaking based on like the heliocentric Roman calendar crap. crap because it's way more interesting than what we're told in school. But I'm not going to really veer into that because I'll admit, I don't have the syntax yet to be able to describe something that is more extra dimensional than this little tiny square that we call three-dimensional. And if it's a three-dimensional square, then it's actually a cube. So I drew a little diagram, right? So this little cube, that's us. This is where we live. This is space and time, right? Cool. On that cube, imagine another little cube on top of it. So that all the cubes that have, or the little squares, cubes that have a little star, that's our current space and time where we are located right now, right? You got another one above it, to the side of it. Keep doing that, right? Keep playing that game. Keep adding more, right? If you take that square, make it three-dimensional, let's look above the cube. You can keep everywhere that there's a missing square or cube, you can add another one and another one, right? And from where we are at right now, imagine that this time, this space right here, from here all the way over here, it's 10,000 cubes, right? Let's pretend that each cube is a year. So we'll say from here to here, 10,000 years, right? Okay, I'm gonna get to the dream part, I promise. So from here to here, 10,000 cubes, 10,000 squares, right? Or 10,000 years. And it's really, really like, if you think about infinity, infinity, right? You can't really think about infinity. But the best we can do as three-dimensional creatures, we can conceptualize things, right? So this is my conceptualization. This is the best that I could do currently in my state of development to explain my perspective on what dreams are. Or not what dreams are, but what the fuck is going on with dreams, how the mechanisms work, right? So in that time frame between where we are right now to the 10,000 cubes, 10,000 years, all the way over here, you can pick out a cube, and in that cube, there'll be infinite cubes between here and here. You can keep zigzagging, right? From where we are right now, our time, the ones around us, touching this timeline, they're almost identical. Almost. There's slight variance, right? The further away, so imagine this thing right here, where we are. The further away we move from our little cube, or our time, the further away from time here we move, right? So the more different things we'll get from here to here, right? So when you're sleeping, as you go through the cycles of sleep and you go into REM, right, your body produces melatonin, it produces like serotonin, and produces melatonin, and eventually your pineal gland produces DMT. And DMT isn't only secreted or produced inside the pineal gland, but science will pick up on that shit later, soon, actually, really soon. So have you ever smoked DMT? And when you take ayahuasca, you are consuming DMT, but you're also consuming DMT through a lens of something more earthy, like the Cappy, MAOI vine. And so you get this whole Mother Earth, she's pregnant for infinity, her vagina is infinitely gushing the waterfall of life, blah, 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 blah. But if you just take the actual DMT itself, the molecule, the God particle, and you smoke it, things get a little more interesting. Not that the ayahuasca isn't interesting, but things get a little more futuristic, sci-fi, cybernetic, alien, transhuman, whatever you want to call the thing, right? But it gets a little interesting. When you go to sleep, the DMT is being produced. Now, it's interesting because you wake up, you go to sleep, and then you just wake up in the middle of a dream. You're doing something. You're in the middle of something. Sometimes you may be the character, which what I would say, if I'm still this character, Raven, this avatar, this idea, this persona, this mask named Raven in this reality, I'm still personifying that one in another dimension or reality. I'm close I'm still really close to this one right here, right? Like I'm still really close. The avatar's data is still there, something that I can still recognize. I may look a little different. I may look exactly the same. I may have longer hair, shorter hair, more tattoos, whatever, right? Sometimes it feels like you're time traveling, like you went to the past. You might even go back to your childhood, or you might go to another timeline in this reality. So like the other night, for example, I had a dream. And in this dream, I was with Christine and a group of people that I already know here in Taos. So it was Taos, but this doesn't mean anything for you guys. This is just like to give you like some sort of concept to what, or substance to what I'm explaining here. It was Taos. It was like the gold rush era, right? Like the late 1800s. And there were white people and natives and some crossbreeds. And that was me, that was Christine. And there were a few characters that I know in this reality right now, but they were there. And it was just like kind of pioneer days, gold rush, you know, Wild Wild West sort of era. And I realized that I understood. I knew, like, this character was able to. I play this game in my dreams where I can bring data from here over there. I'm an actor, right? So I'm time jumping or time. I'm slipping through time, so I'm time traveling, time jumping. So I understood that, and I know this when I go through dreams. You can call it lucid dreaming. You're lucid because you're aware, but the awareness comes from the fact that I'm me, Raven, in this reality, in the other one. Now I played around with this game before. When I'm in that other reality, that other dimension, in another cube, right? There are laws, whether they are physics, social structures, constructs, whatever the fuck. There are rules. I, in the past, have intervened with that stuff, and all the characters in the dream, it's like a movie, they get very weirded out. They get confused. They get very suspicious of me. They look at me and they're like, what? Even my thoughts, the way that I'm perceiving the reality, they pick up on something different. They look at me, and I've been asked so many times in dreams, hey, are you okay? Are you all right? Is everything all right? Why are you acting weird? What's wrong with you? Hey, did you take something? Are you on something? Is everything okay? So I've learned to just like be aware of the fact that I'm in another place, respect the boundaries of that place, and just be the observer of that reality and not fuck around, right? Cool. So the dream state thing. And now I'm going to connect it to the psychedelic thing as well. So my experiences with psychedelics are exactly the same. Here's the thing though. So in some dreams, you are still a three-dimensional physical being, right? But have you ever had a dream where you're not? Maybe you can fly, you can levitate, maybe you can move things with your mind, maybe you can control the other avatars, the other characters in the dream, right? So I've learned to do that specifically with LSD. By the way, don't do any of the stuff. Don't do any of the stuff that I talk about. I don't recommend any of this stuff for anybody. The reason I say that is not because I could get in trouble, because I can't get in trouble. I am like untouchable, honestly. It's just because it's not for everybody. That doesn't mean, oh, he's probably saying that because it's like a test. It's really not. And me saying this could be like it's a test still, but it really isn't. Because most of you can't handle what's going to happen afterwards. Because unless you're willing to deal with the consequences and repercussions of what that entails, maybe losing your life, you need to understand certain foundational rules of these interdimensional reality games, that I am not my physical body. So I am willing to relinquish this physical body in order for me to go in through a Stargate, a portal. I cannot bring my physical body there. So if I enter this portal, I enter this Stargate, I cannot bring my physical reality because I am not a physical being. I am peering through the eyes of something, but I don't actually exist. And if I cannot let go of the physical body that I have believed that I am attached to, because I believe that I am a body, the consequences and repercussions of that kind of shit is fucking crazy. It's fucked up. Meaning, you don't get to leave. You get to sit here, and you get to deal with all the consequences and repercussions that come behind attempting to walk away, to separate from the body prematurely when you're not ready. And whatever you did to your body, you didn't get to disconnect. You don't get to fucking leave. And whatever you did, you could be comatose for the rest of your life. You could be paraplegic for the rest of your life. You can lose limbs. You can lose shit. It's not worth it, right? Just stick around with this. Like, stick to the lucid dreaming stuff. It's like the best thing that you can fucking do. But with psychedelics, the psychedelics are mirroring the same thing that you could do, that you're also doing when you are sleeping. The thing with the psychedelics is that you take the psychedelics, they push you a little further than your constructs of what existence is. So you take a psychedelic and you become a vapor being, you become a light being, so your consciousness housed in something, in a recipient that isn't, the conventional physical human being, right? So let's see. So this is why Alchemy has definitely been a really good guide, because Alchemy is a technology. It's a holographic language, but it's also a technology, right? So when you think about alchemy, you have the powerful three, right? So you have your three, your triangle. So on the top you have your soul, which is the programmer. It's the user. It's the consciousness itself. And it is the actuating cause of awe, right? And then you have the mind, which is the one that imagines everything. And then you have the body, which is the outcome of the mind imagining things, right? So you're not in this world, you're imagining it. You're dreaming it. Dreaming, imagination, they're all the fucking same thing. So you have the soul, which is the programmer. And this ties into the oil of gold that I recently put out. So the gold is consciousness. It's the crown, right? It's the crown chakra, but it's attuned to the ajna, which is the third eye. It's connected to what we call the seat of the soul, and they say that the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? Depending on what belief system you're talking about, the names are going to vary. So the chakra systems, whatever you want to call them, they may switch a little bit. It's because the one thing is pretending to be awe, right? So they're all actually the same thing. They're just expressed in their own unique way. So you have your pineal gland. So imagine a radio, right? I mean, we've been making radios for a very long time. Radios have a little quartz crystal inside of it, and it is a receiver. The pineal gland is essentially the same thing, right? So the consciousness, the soul, is not here pretending to be me. It's just being transmitted to the pineal as a crystal itself, and then it's having the experience that we're having right now. So in a radio, the disc jockey, the radio station that you're listening to, it's not inside of the radio. It's located somewhere else, but because the radio has an input-output system devised to be able to house or transmit consciousness, that's exactly what it does. When you go to sleep, channels are changing. When you take a psychedelic, when you take LSD, when you smoke DMT, you are changing a channel. Well, the channel is changing. So, when the channel is changing, you get to experience something different, which is why every time you take a psychedelic or every time you go to sleep, you don't pick up where you left off, you just enter somewhere else. I had to write all this stuff down. Because usually I take mushrooms and I drink a little bit of spirit. Tonight I did ketamine a couple hours ago. I went in just to really tap me into this thing. Ketamine is amazing because ketamine is like it's like red tail hawk energy. It's a bigger perspective. And if you've ever done ketamine at very large high doses, what happens is that you get to see like the bigger stream of how consciousness is playing into all this stuff, right? So, this evening I took tarantula, took some oil of gold, took some ketamine, drank a little bit of spirit, which, by the way, some sake tonight. Salud. And for me, these are all technologies that I get to play with. I've interacted with psychedelics for so long now that now, even with the animal work and metallic work and alchemy itself, I'm able to take these tools, see these things as tools, and integrate them together so that I can utilize them to pick up where I left off, to find myself somewhere where I was before and continue the story, or at least to see how the story plays out. This is also very shamanic, because the shaman is able to traverse space and time, right? Like the shaman is able to take these psychedelics and go from here, anywhere the shaman fucking wants, to steal data. That's what we are. Those of us that play that game, we're interdimensional thieves. It's still Mercury, right? We steal data from one place and bring it to the other, right? So if I need rain, I'll consume a psychedelic at a certain dose. Take something like, the claws of an owl or a red-tailed hawk or something. Bring that with me to the dimension where it's just constantly raining, right? Because this is infinity we're talking about, right? So, those little cubes that I was showing you. Now imagine a cube on top of a cube, on top of another cube, to the side of a cube, right? Like all this is 10,000 cubes, right? Each one has a cube on top of it, a cube on top of it, a cube on top of it, to the left, to the right, whatever the fuck, right? That means that in infinity, anything that is possible, is already occurring. That's it. So Egypt, Atlantis, the golden era of Rome and Greece, the library at Alexandria itself, that's all actually happening right now. It's just not happening here. But you can fixate your consciousness. It takes a lot of fucking work and a lot of courage, a lot of death, and a lot of rebirth to be able to traverse these timelines and hopefully find your way back to this one little point that we call our reality right now, right? So that's like the name of the game. I'm here, and this is where I'm at, for me to be able to go anywhere in space and time and find my way back here. That's why knowing thyself is key. Knowing thyself and knowing myself allows me to know, like, as a programmer, as a user, and as a hacker, I can know the system of computer language or reality language or, infinity. So I can at least be able to find my way back. So I can go wherever and find my way back. But just like in a video game, right? Playing a video game, there's a little map up here in the corner, right? You may find a map, like in the game, like a scroll or a little box or whatever that has a map. It'll open up more. But usually what happens is that as you're walking through the game, in front of you, in the direction that you're walking, it's black. Behind you, so this is as I'm walking, right? It's like that. So everywhere that I've ever traversed will leave a map already mapped out. Where I'm walking to is the darkness, the unknown, right? Unconsciousness. And what we do as interdimensional, intergalactic, cosmic hackers, what we actually do is that we could traverse these spaces, map them out, at least for ourselves, to leave a trail for us to be able to come back to later on, right? Or put a pin on it, and then it's like, cool, that reality has a lot of carbon, or it has a lot of sulfur, or it has a lot of H2O, has a lot of this and forth, and I can go and steal that stuff and bring it back here and keep. It's like kind of like Minecraft. I can keep creating and recreating the reality in which I existed. Not because I have to, not because there's anything wrong with this, it's because that's what evolution is. Evolution is that we just change because we can, because it makes things, I want to know what is possible. So I want to be able to traverse the unknown, which means I'm going to encounter fear. I'm going to encounter terror because I don't know what's over there. There will be dragons. There's always fucking dragons. There's always demons. There's always creatures. There's always elementals that can even exceed the 4 elementals that we have here on Earth, right? So anyways, so when you're dreaming, this is essentially what's going on. You're just pew, 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 just moving from one to the other, and you come right back here. Smoke DMT, take LSD, do some ketamine, whatever, same shit, right? It's like, hey, where'd you come from? Sometimes what happens is when you go really far from the little square in which we're like, going from here to here could be very psychedelic, bro. Very fucking weird. To go from there to there, there to there, from there to there, and keep going and going and going, it's gonna get weirder and weirder and weirder. Really quick, the whole conversation about the aliens that I know that some people are fucking creaming their pants about. So, just imagine something real quick. Don't ask me about it later. I'm not going to get into it. But imagine a project, right, that we're doing here on Earth. And we'll call it Project Hermes, right? It's an interstellar project. And we're just going to go map the unconsciousness. This is very Jungian psychoanalysis, right? Like psychology. This is very shamanic. But it's also cybernetic. It's very high-tech. It's very futuristic. The idea is to be able to go into realms that I have not consciously gone into, to map those realms and to bring that data back for whatever reason. Sometimes it's because of us playing double agents with the military industrial complex or whatever the fuck, but hey, somebody's paying for it. Why not, right? Do it what you got. And you get into this thing and you start to realize part of the training program is to realize that this right here is a vehicle. I am not the vehicle. It is a vessel. This is my ship. This is how I traverse space, time, right? And think of Hermes, Mercury, right? I am not the physical body, but I am that thing that is malleable. I can take the shape of any container in which I'm put into. And even though in that shape, the thing that I can do also is, and what I naturally do, is that I reflect as liquid metal, right? Which is really cool to be able to know this as you're fucking around in other dimensions that are technically none of your fucking business. It's really cool if you get really good at keeping your opinions, your belief systems, your thoughts, and all that shit to yourself, because sometimes it could be really fucking dangerous. You're infiltrating. Your avatar gets to change. Mercury, right? So, I know me. So when I go into these different dimensions, whether it's through LSD, ketamine, DMT, or through dream state stuff, one of the big things that I've learned is to just keep my mouth fucking shut. So it's kind of like a split personality thing, where I spice my brain. This is Raven. This character that's speaking right now to itself. I keep him in the background all the time. I want him there because this is the motherfucker that is going to keep as much data as possible within one hard drive and within its CPU as much as possible. Because every time I die, my data gets scrambled and I forget, and it's really difficult to attain a lot of that data right back every time that I come back into this or any other fucking reality. I am a library of data. That's it. That's all that's why I need Raven, Israel, Ruiz to be my core heart of data collection. When I go into another reality, it's the ketamine, by the way. So when I go into another reality, I keep quiet. I keep him quiet. I have him sit in the background and watch. I want him to watch because he collects data, right? And I want this. Why doesn't fucking matter. but I want this to happen. So I need him to go into a different reality where maybe I don't have arms. Maybe I'm pink. Maybe I'm purple. Maybe I'm blue. Maybe I have a snout. Maybe I have reptilian teeth, you know? Because remember, we are doing what? We are moving further away, so things will get very, very weird. And we're not just moving in a linear fashion. We can move up or down, or left or right, or within or without. And this is where we start to get into the conversation of higher dimensional experiences through higher dimensions, higher dimensional bodies, different ones, right? Fine. These dimensions are not above us, by the way, necessarily. They actually exist within. So there's this fourth dimensional space that exists right now, right here, but you can't see it because your eyes are designed to see three-dimensional space, right? If you were operating from a fourth dimensional space, in order for you to see the little fourth dimension that is right here, you would have to be able to look like this. Straight. A little parabola around, stop, go around, do some couple loop-de-loops, in and out, and then to be able to see it. We can't see that way. That's why when you smoke DMT or take LSD or something sometimes, and your homie's like, bro, that was so cool, bro. What did you see? You're like, you understand what the fuck you just experienced, but there's no way to articulate it because even our fucking words are condemned to three-dimensional spatial relationships, right? Fine. Okay, I'm getting hype. So, it gets very weird when you go into these spaces. And this is not new because this is a cycle of mine that's been happening. I'm looking for like this design. I had this little notebook too but I did this around this time about 3 years ago. So, okay. Two-dimensional space and one-dimensional space for us is already intertwined, right? So you have a square, right? We can see into the the square, right? I don't have a picture of a square, but let's just forget that that's a cube. It's a square, right? So let's think about this real quick. Carl Sagan did a beautiful job about with this years ago. So let's say that what you're looking at right now, this is the two-dimensional world, right? So every time you draw an object like a square, they live in this flat realm, right? I am a three-dimensional being. So I can communicate with these conscious little beings that live in the two-dimensional realm. If I were to peer into their realm, make myself visible, so let's say my hand, right? I go like this, into the two-dimensional realm, what they will see is this. They will begin to see the tip of my finger, which is that black dot, and as my finger keeps going through their dimension, that black dot will expand into a bigger hole, a bigger circle, bigger circle, bigger circle, bigger circle, bigger circle, bigger circle, right? And then like my hand, so it would be like 4 dots, and then my thumb, right? And then eventually it'll all start to close up as I disappear from the two-dimensional space. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, you can read about this shit. Eat some LSD too. But it's very difficult for a two-dimensional being to see. No, it's pretty much impossible for a two-dimensional being to be able to see a three-dimensional being. So if I showed up in a two-dimensional realm, they would still see something flat. They would just see something show up. So let's see. About a week ago, I was doing a cleanse. I did not eat for 6 days. I probably need 6 days. I got a total of maybe like 12 hours of sleep. I was doing some mission stuff, but I was playing around with, I like to push how far I can go. Mercury. And I was having a conversation on FaceTime. I was in the kitchen and I saw here this, I thought it was like a sock or something, but it got like tossed around from one side of my room to the other. It appeared out of thin air and then disappeared. It traveled and then disappeared. There. And in my home, in my temple, there's a lot of that activity. I tend to, I'm really good at ignoring it because it's very, it's a lot of data, right? I'm not trying to be schizophrenic. I have a ground and a hold and a grasp in my physical reality, so I don't let myself be aware of these things constantly, because then I cannot tell the difference between you, and then this other thing this is appearing from another dimension and so on, right? Cool. So in the fourth dimension, it's really different. It's all right. So you have a cube. Cube is 3-dimensional, right? In the fourth dimension, imagine that this cube has another cube around it. That's it right here. Okay? This is where we start to get into what's called hypershapes, right? So it's like the platonic solids, but they're hyper, right? Let's say hyper is constantly in motion. So the inside of that cube is always becoming the outside, while the outside is always going back into the middle. It's constantly moving. But it's not just moving in one direction, like the top becomes the bottom and the bottom becomes the top. The top will also become the left and then it will become the right. It's constantly moving, but it's not moving in a 3-dimensional form. It's moving in a 4th-dimensional form. So they're never fucking still. And if you were to take a cube, if you were to take, how many squares are inside of a cube? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 6. So you got 6 squares that make up a cube, right? If you take 6 squares made of plexiglass, so they're completely transparent, right? And you glue them together, and then you shine a light on them, your shadow would be the 4th-dimensional shape of that 3-dimensional thing. It's weird. Think about light. Light, the consciousness itself, right? The king, the sun, God, the creator, the one thing. It's beaming its light through all fucking dimensions. And the shadow of something creates a shadow of something else, which creates a shadow of something else. Each shadow representation also represents a dimension. That's it. I know it's like, what? Like, yeah. That's why this shit gets weird. I'm not really veering away from the dream stuff. What I'm saying, what I did was I already explained the dream stuff, right? Which is consciousness exists everywhere. Where your attention is what your reality is, right? There was a reality where you have money, a lot of money. That reality already exists, and you can move. You can switch. You can leave here and go to a reality where there is you who has a lot of money. But you gotta be careful with that shit, because the universe only understands 2 things. And the universe only operates from 2 things. Yes and go. So you have to be very conscientious about what it is that you want and why. Because wanting and knowing are 2 different things. If I want something, that means I don't have. When I don't have, the universe says, yes, Raven does not have. Why can I get the thing that I want? Because you keep saying that you want, instead of saying, I have. Knowing. That shit is tricky, right? You can apply this kind of stuff when you're dreaming, too. Lucid dreaming, I've been taking notes. I have so many fucking notebooks or dream journals that I have kept throughout the years, even if the only thing that I remember from last night's dream was there was a red sphere. That's it. And not only do I write it, I also will draw a sphere, and then I'll mark next to it red. The color was red, and it was a sphere. That's it. I keep all data because it lets my subconscious mind know that all data that I deem as important is always kept, which allows me to recollect that data for later usage or for later travels. they're like landmarks, right? It's like if I don't have a GPS and I want to tell you how to get to the grocery store, I say, keep driving straight. There's going to be a big rock that has graffiti on it. At that rock, you make a sharp left. Like they're just markers. They're landmarks. They're just little nodes throughout space and time. You can do the same thing when it comes to dreams. I do that with dreams, but I have a lot more fun when I do it with LSD, for example, because with the LSD, I still have a little bit of control, more control than like the DMT. It's really difficult with the DMT because it requires a lot more work with the DMT and less work with the LSD, which still is a lot of fucking work. Trial and error, while I defrag my old ways of thinking, my old limitations, my old boundaries, my old belief systems to create and instill new ones, which allows me to really go far out, man. So, I'm not going to get into fifth dimensional because if the fourth dimensional is a little difficult to swallow, yeah, there's no point in getting there, right? And it's interesting because all the spiritualists are like, yeah, we're going 5D. It's like, we haven't even covered 4D. What do you mean we're going 5D? In the fourth dimensional realm, all possibilities are possible. They're occurring right now. They're just waiting for you, the user, the pilot of the vehicle, of the spaceship, that we call the body, to actually navigate it. And you're learning how to be a captain of that ship. But all this stuff with like COVID and like Ukraine, Russia, and like politics and Democrats and Republicans and leftists and wearing masks and how they like diseases and my immune system and should I take, vitamin A and like am I being depleted? Is caffeine bad? Is tobacco awful? Is cancer real? All this shit. They're just distractions. As I always say in most of my fucking videos, they're just fucking distractions. But they're distractions that you created because of, anything is possible. So there are realities in which, you do get cancer in your life, so you die. So you are bound to the circumstances and repercussions of being alive and being anchored down into this thing, which is you get disease. There are parasites, and they eat away at you every single fucking day of your life until you fucking are reused for the rest of the fucking universe as energy. And keeping it professional. Not so much because I got all these notes. So, yes. We think, because we think as time, through time, and time is a construct which is linear, right? So it's like from here to here and everything in between, right? Linear construct of time. But time is not linear. So I looked up what would be the opposites of the word. My cat wrote some stuff on my laptop. Hold on. So I wanted to find out what were the opposite words of non-linear. And the results I got were random, arbitrary, indiscriminate, irregular, unpredictable, chaotic, disorderly, erratic, haphazard, unsystematic, variable, disorganized, fluky, hit and miss, hit or miss, illogical, inconsistent, indeterminate, uncertain, whimsical, aleatory, designless, desultory, disconnected, disordered, entropic, fractal, frenzied, jumbled, messy, mixed up, muddled, non-uniform, promiscuous, jumbled, scattered, scrambled, stochastic, uncontrolled, unmethodical, all over the map, all over the place, chancy, uncalculable, undirected, and 250 more words, which are fucking great. I love these words. It's interesting because you have to fit a very linear mode of operating, thinking, and belief system. If you don't, there's something wrong, right? That's why you start to take antipsychotics, or you have anxiety, or there's something wrong with you, right? That's why when you eat too many psychedelics, there's something wrong, right? If you go to a doctor, if you keep hanging out with the same people, if you don't learn how to ground that shit and learn how to play fucking games. And the trick is, I will eat this thing, drink this thing, smoke this thing, snort this thing, but I will maintain a job for the time being. I will make sure that there are funds coming into my bank account. I will make sure that I eat food. I will make sure that I don't run around. And I don't start preaching this shit. See what I'm doing right now? I keep my shit private. Not just through Instagram, but through magical spellings as well. And intention. Because I don't want to be seen as like the crazy guy that wears a fucking rain boot on his head preaching truth, but no one's gonna fucking listen anyway. You have to be able to kill the self that you thought that you were. That means you're going to have to kill these ideas of family, friends, social structures, romance, love, being, abundance, and everything. You will ostracize yourself. You will alienate yourself. You will omit yourself from society. But it's better to do that kind of stuff with a very smart and self-engineered mode of being rather than being subjected to like a psych ward. There's too many of us in psych wards. There's too many of us in prison. There's too many of us that are dead. There's too many of us that are smoking crystal meth in a fucking trap house somewhere in the middle of nowhere. There's some of these guys that I've met that are they're in it. They get it, but they did not ground themselves. There was no intention. They didn't know what the fuck they were fucking with. They were being Prometheus for themselves. But it's like, yeah, bro, you're gonna steal fire from the gods. You must know that the hand that steals the fire will get burned. And the being that possesses that hand is also going to get burned. Are you willing to go through the consequences and repercussions that come with being burned alive with that kind of data? Because just like in the movie The Matrix, if you know that shit and you emit that energy, agents start showing up. Whether it's the police, whether it's the paramedics, whether it's doctors with Thorazine to shoot you in the fucking ass to get you to stop. Because your mode of thinking, that frequency that you emit, does not follow the protocol of the current computer system. So you are seen as a virus. You are seen as a threat to the way that the ecosystem of the computer program is designed and set. I know I'm going really fucking far right now with this thing, but yes, the dream stuff is just like a very cute, innocent precursor to like the crazy shit that you could do too. You can fucking do this stuff too. You can fucking do this stuff too. I'm still a little lagging from the ketamine lags. Yes. So yeah, so time is linear according to social constructs, but it really isn't, and you can change anything. But why are you going to change it? Are you going to change it because the world needs saving? Because if you think that that's why you want to change time and space, because the world needs you to change it, because you think that the trees and the whales and shit need saving, you're not doing anything new. You're actually following the same fucking protocol that most of these dumbasses have been doing for quite some fucking time. What the fuck is the point to repeat something that's already been done? You can already see, you have examples of what that looks like. You have access to these technologies. You have access to the technology because you are the one that designed the technology itself. Because you are already consciousness with this beautiful technology called the Mercury, the Hermes, the mind, the thought. And you could do anything. But we're here in preschool right now. It's not even kindergarten yet. We're here in preschool right now learning how to create. From where we are right now, eventually we will be able to create universes. That sounds sexy and all. But if you can't even fucking shift your reality where you stand at right now, why should you be given the keys to create universes? Well, you gotta start somewhere, right? You can start right here, right now. You have the keys. You can shift it. You can change it. And you have this technology at your hands, because not only do you have the technology, but you are the technology. And I'll tap into this real quick as far as alchemy goes. So like the Philosopher's Stone, there's a lot of dumbasses that have shown up in my reality telling me how they're gonna, this is their conquest, right? Their conquest is the Philosopher's Stone. That they're gonna fucking make it. Apollo, arrogant as all fuck, right? It's a technology. This Philosopher's Stone is a condensed, concentrated counterpart to the thing that we call God, the creator, consciousness, right? It's not something external to be attained, but it is the Philosopher's Stone. It already is a latent ability of ours. It is a counterpart of the thing that we call God, the creator. And when you can consecrate or create the stone, you don't have to do it in a laboratory. You can actually do it with yourself or in a relationship with another person. It is messy. It is terrible. It is terrifying. It is scary. It is fucked up. Because you're going to die and die and die and die and die. Because the two are becoming one, right? Separation stops, become one, right? That's why you're dying. I have to die in order to become all. So the stone itself exists in many dimensions, all dimensions, all at once. There's a cathedral right now in France, and that was the last known location of the last Philosopher's Stone that was confected in the laboratory by an alchemist who no longer had possession of it, probably just for the sake of the game, like, fuck it, let's see what happens. But in this cathedral in France, the stone stood there. And it was kept there. And then one day, the people who were guarding the stone went to go check up on it. It disappeared. It was impossible for anyone or anything to have gone in there and taken it. And it's because it exists, it vibrates simultaneously in this reality and others. My opinion is that it was moved. It was used somewhere else. And that's it. And so it has since disappeared. And it's probably being used in a different timeline by a user with an avatar somewhere else for whatever purposes and reasons. But to get back to the dreams and the psychedelic journeys, they're all the same thing, except that the dreams, they're going to be more in tune to the three-dimensional spatial thing that you're doing here as a human, right? The psychedelics are going to be more abstract because they're going to push what is, or what you think is, a little further. And you can harness these things through a lot of practice, a lot of work. But I'm going to say this. If you ever want to do any of this stuff, don't walk away from your life, though. Don't walk away from your responsibilities and obligations that you have submitted yourself to. It's not cool. I feel it is harder to stay and play the other games than it is to stay and just submit and succumb. And it's harder to find a balance. Equilibrium is always difficult. It's always easier to just choose a side. And it's always easy to burn your life and walk away from responsibilities, contracts, and agreements and promises that you've made than it is to still fulfill and uphold those things and still play the other games. It's not easy at all. I'm doing it though. So it's doable. It's actually doable. It's just going to take a lot of work. Well, what else is there to do? Most of you are still fucking running around wearing diapers in your face anyway, right? Most of you are running around still adhering to these storylines. I'm not doing that shit. I'm still here. I still have a job to do. I still do my thing. I work for old people. I help them out so that, they're gonna fucking die soon. So why not have like the most chill reality in existence that you could possibly have? I have my wife and I have cats and my fish and my plants. I keep these things around me because I have a home, not just this, but I have a home that I come to every time that I traverse these dimensions and other spaces and realities. I have a place that I could come home to and digress, to collect the data and put the data to use, or at least have an interesting story to read to myself and to whoever is crazy enough around me to want to hear that kind of crazy shit. And the very few who would like to jump through these portals, not with me, together, just because, fuck it. What else can we do? Not to leave this world, not to bring heaven on earth, because something's wrong with perfection that divinity already granted us, that you gifted me. You gave me this life. You gave me this world. You gave me this reality. You gave me this existence. Why would I want anything else? I don't. I time jump and I steal things because I can. It's something to do. Why not? I don't want to live in those realities. I love this one. And yeah, sure, I think that this one's going to take me, into in this physical reality, leaving Earth to other things, but not anytime soon. I love it here. I'm not attached. If God tells me to leave, I'll leave. But I'm not being asked. I steal things because I can. What an interesting comment. Yeah, because I can. I do no harm to anyone. I don't lie to people. And I don't steal from people here. But I'm not attached to other timelines. So, yeah, God gave me the ability to be able to go over there. I'm not stealing like someone's like fucking bread. I'm stealing a little bit of an artifact that can help push, not help, but assist in pushing this reality a little further. Because I can. Because that's what intelligence does. The intelligence fragmented itself into infinite intelligences, right? That's what AI is, by the way. Artificial intelligence is just a copy of that fragmented into infinity. All right, let's say the one thing fragmented itself into infinity. Each little dimension has a little sign that I can bring over here. Not because I have to, because I can. It's just what I can do. What is the Philosopher's Stone? I'll answer this and then wrap this up. The Philosopher's Stone is you. You're the Philosopher's Stone already. Not the idea of you. See? But you. The idea that it brings immortality. It doesn't give you immortality. You already are immortal. It just reminds you of something. To confect it, to craft it, to create it in a laboratory or in a relationship with another human counterpart in a romantic setting, right? Where the two become one, the rebis, right? REBIS, the rebis, right? One body, two heads, each head has a crown, right? That's you. That's you. Virtue is a good path to take, nonetheless. Yeah. Virtue is a pain in the ass. Because it's for the rest of your fucking life. It's the way of the sword, the way of the truth, the way of the path, the way of love, the way of the heart, right? But you're always going to be teetering back and forth. It's like, I love you, but you're fucking driving me nuts. It's like, right. So just say fuck you and walk away. You can. That's okay. Do no harm, do no foul, do not lie, and do not keep secrets. And you're fucking good. You're set for the rest of your fucking cosmic, eternal existence. But yeah, dreams. That's my perspective on dreams, how they're interconnected with psychedelics. Oh, by the way, the alien thing. Really quick. Remember that little square? Okay. 10,000 squares, time, right? So there's this theory that in the universe, there's a singular moment and all is expanding like out of it in every direction, right? Okay, cool. So that little moment, from that moment to where we are, let's play along with the human theory. From that moment to where we are right now with our solar system, it's like 4 billion years old or whatever the fuck, right? Cool. But, so let's say this is the moment of creation, the Big Bang. This is where we are. 4 billion years. But let's like zoom out for a second. There's shit further than us. So there's like timelines that have been happening for quadrillions of years, trillions and billions of light years ahead of us. That's still you, though. It's still I. The further away, the more abstract things get. So, space is very dark, by the way. By the way, we live in a dome, in a flask, in a firmament. The 7 planets, and it's all here. The stars are outside. Those are the angels outside. The fallen angels, the diseased metals, the diseased planets, they're all in this firmament. But everything is healing, blah, 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 right? So like Lucifer, the sun, all this shit. Outside of that, it's all Gucci, right? And it is inside the flask too, right? Cool. When you get out of that thing, when you start to traverse space and time, the idea of like, maybe angels don't have wings and like armor and whatever the fuck. They're like weird spheres, like DMT spheres, infinite eyes of whatever the fuck, right? Like that's like really far out there. But if I took a spaceship and I had unlimited amounts of like oxygen, whatever the fuck my physical body needed to sustain itself and live, right? And I can fly this little spaceship from Earth outside the solar system, beyond Pluto and further, right? I have enough energy around me to sustain me for aeons, right? So my body doesn't die. What will happen is my body will evolve, right? If I live in space and space is black, it is actually dark, right? Because the distance between one star and another is so fucking vast. There's just so much more black space in between. Like nocturnal animals, my eyes are going to get bigger. They just are. Because I need to be able to absorb the little amount of light that's going on. So my eyes are going to get black and they're going to get bigger. Now, mind you, my physical body is designed to be able to sense its physical reality. So I know what I'm doing, what I'm touching, my phone, spatial relationships and stuff, right? But if I'm in a fucking rocket ship, eventually the rocket ship that I'm in, the spaceship, the shuttle that I'm in, well, my body and I will build a relationship together. A weird symbiotic relationship. My brain is probably going to have to get bigger. So my head is probably going to have to get bigger too. So now my eyes are big because of the light, right? Or the lack of it. My brain's going to get bigger because your brain is the CPU to the rest of the extension of your spinal cord, your central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, which are just guidance systems to be able to detect everything around. But if the only thing that's around me is I'm the spaceship. My body and the spaceship become one being throughout time because I'm keep evolving. I can't die, right? I'm gonna eventually my nervous system is gonna start to branch out with my brain beyond my spaceship, so I can detect other life forms in different planets. And if there aren't planets for a very fucking long time, I'm going to start to become hyper receptive and hypersensitive and hyper aware of interdimensionalities. So other dimensions that exist within this one. That requires a bigger brain in order for me to tap. Am I getting weird about this? Yes, I am. But it's going to require me to really expand beyond what I thought was my physical body and allow that evolution to happen so that I could expand and become larger than my physical body so that I could become more aware and connected to the vastness of what we think is emptiness, but really it is just a plethora of life happening all around us. Even here, right now, in this room, there's so much life going on and that we cannot detect with microscopes, sonar, like there's just so much going on. So the alien thing, in my opinion, from my experience, it's just me from a timeline. Remember where we are in the little cube? From a vast, far away timeline. It's so advanced that it has the capability of time jumping in a much more advanced way, connecting with me. And if I'm not a little testicles are much more sensitive. Vaginas are much more resilient. If I'm a fucking testicle, if I'm not, I can receive this alien being and not be terrified that it's a reptilian trying to do whatever the fuck, and just understand that it's actually me from a different timeline connecting with me, and I might just get some juicy tidbits. I mean, wouldn't you want to be cool with them too? I do. I would. Nikolai Tesla did that shit. What do you think he invented the Tesla coil and all the other crazy technologies? He was just hanging out with future versions of himself. He did not understand that stuff, but it was future versions of himself coming back in time. It's like Back to the Future. Yeah. Do you believe women are more powerful, energetic beings? No, because I don't believe that men and women exist. It's all the same thing. That's it. Everything has its qualities and its specialties. I even said to Christine today, if I ever become that important or that rich or whatever the fuck, I would have men and women as my guards. Outside of the parameters of my kingdom, I would have men with machine guns or whatever the fuck patrolling that shit, like guard dogs. And even outside of my office quarters, I would have men standing outside. But inside of my office, I would have women who would be assassins. Because they're much more mercurial than men. They're much more flexible, no pun intended. They're much more fluid than men. They're capable of disconnecting in a way from the physical experience. That, I mean, come on, they give birth. They push out something this big out of something that big. Yeah, you're built for something cool. And men serve a great purpose as well. So it's not that men or women, there's like a competition, one is better. No, each individual has qualifications that are better than the other. That's just it. And it has nothing to do with gender either. Because I've also met males who I was impressed. I was like, damn. Okay, cool. So it's all the same thing. Then you can do this thing. And I've met females that I would put outside of my office. And it's like, nah, you're like a fucking bulldog. You can go outside and like fight with these. You stay out there. So it has nothing to do with male or female. It has to do with the qualifications. It has to do with the persona itself. Nothing to do with gender. Gender only plays one role. That's a whole other alchemical conversation. But yeah. I hope I explained my take on the dreams. And yeah, I love you guys. Have a good night. Ciao.